What's good? It's Woog. I wanted to cover the main events that just took place on the two different cards. One was on DAZN, one was on ESPN Top Rank. And the results of these two fights was Anthony Cacace defeating Lee Wood via 9th round TKO. That took place in the UK, Nottingham, England. And then later on that night, it was Emmanuel Navarrete winning a technical decision after 7 rounds due to a cut. Now, we're going to get into the controversy surrounding the cut and what's likely to follow. But Navarrete, in what was shaping up to be a pretty interesting fight. A lot of people were saying fight of the year contender. I didn't quite see that. I thought Navarrete was more or less in control. I see what Charlie Suarez was trying to do with a lot of those counters and specifically going to Navarrete's body. Navarrete had a lot of trouble making weight the day before. So I saw what Charlie Suarez was trying to do, but I thought that this fight reflected or at least somewhat mirrored a lot of Emmanuel Navarrete fights. And we see how Navarrete often picks it up in the second half of the fight. But yeah, Navarrete, it was very anticlimactic based on the way that the fight was stopped. And because it was a cut, the doctor looked at him for like a second time after Navarrete fought through a round with that bad cut. They stopped the fight after the 7th round. So Navarrete retained his WBO title. But let's get to the Anthony Cacace versus Lee Wood. I'm just going to say it. I'm a Lee Wood fan, and I was pulling for Lee Wood here. I thought that he would be up against it. I was kind of torn between taking Cacace via stoppage and Cacace via decision. I ended up choosing Cacace via decision, but he did, in fact, stop Lee Wood in the 9th round. I thought Lee Wood was boxing fairly well in the first couple of rounds, but it became pretty clear, I would say by the 4th round, that Lee Wood was having trouble with the size, the power, and I would even say the pace and the surprisingly good boxing when it comes to Cacace's jab that was just rocking Lee Wood's head back. It became clear by the 4th and definitely by the 5th round that Lee Wood was having trouble. By the 6th round, Lee Wood was getting beaten on pretty badly. And I remember at the end of the 8th round, Lee Wood made it sound like he thought Cacace was tiring out. Like he came to his corner, told Ben Davison he's getting tired. And it sounded like, I'm thinking and I'm hoping, damn, can Lee Wood pull off some magic just one more time? But it wasn't to be. The very next round, he got dropped. Not totally dropped, but the ropes caught him. So they called it a knockdown, which was the right call. And then he got beaten on some more. And then he ended up looking like he just gave Cacace his back and retreated. Ben Davison threw in the towel. End of the fight. 9th round TKO for Anthony Cacace. But I kind of think that this might be the end of Lee Wood's career. And I wouldn't be mad at that. I don't think that he's got a lot to offer at this stage. He's 36 years old, and this was his first fight up a division at 130. I don't think he's durable enough to hang at 130. He's a good boxer, but not a good enough boxer to, take on the likes of like Lamont Roach and different sweet scientists at 130. I mean, I would like to see like O'Shaquie Foster versus Lee Wood, but I think O'Shaquie Foster handles Lee Wood pretty handedly. I would more like to see Anthony Cacace, who was the IBF champ at 130 after stopping Joe Cordina. Yes, there was that controversial moment after the half break where the whole fight turned on Cacace rocking Joe Cordina, who was totally unguarded with that left hook, changed the whole fight around. But Anthony Cacace stopping Cordina gave him that IBF title, which he vacated to have this fight with Lee Wood. So he only has the IBO title, which wasn't or isn't one of the 4 major titles in boxing. So I hardly even count that. Like, name the IBO champs in every division. Good luck. And good luck on that IBO champ reflecting who the best or even a top 3 fighter in that division is. But Anthony Cacace, I would like to see him chase down another title at 130. He's shaping up to be a pretty solid fighter in the division. I would like to see him challenge O'Shaquie Foster for Foster's WBC 130-pound title. If not, I mean, I would say Lamont Roach, but he's most likely going to be tied up with that Tank Davis rematch. And then there's going to be the vacant IBF title fight between Eduardo Nunez and Masanori Rikishi. It sounds like the winner of that's going to be the new IBF champ. Remember, that's the same title that Anthony Cacace just vacated. So yeah, Anthony Cacace, I thought that he was beating up on Lee Wood by the 4th, 5th, definitely by the 6th round. And you could just see that Lee Wood was struggling with the size, the strength, the pace, and the power, and the boxing, really, of Anthony Cacace. You saw Lee Wood trying to pick it up, trying to throw some nice hard combinations, but it looked like when he was going to the body, his punch didn't fully carry to 130. It didn't look like his power was doing much of anything to Cacace, to be honest with you. And Cacace did develop a pretty nasty cut, and I believe that was either in the 7th or the 8th round. It looked like it emboldened Lee Wood, who was also kind of getting hammered. So it emboldened him, but he was still kind of taking a beating. But if you look at how that cut was caused, it was a Lee Wood shot that was actually an elbow. He caught him with an elbow like that. They showed it pretty nicely on the replay, and it cut underneath Anthony Cacace's eye and also bloodied up his nose a bit. So, I mean, as soon as he got hit with that elbow, and again, it wasn't like an elbow like Sebastian Fundora hit Tim Tszyu with. It was an elbow with his, like he was about to throw a punch or kind of held back in throwing a punch, and instead his arm went forward and he hit him with the elbow like that. As soon as Cacace was hit with that, he gestured to the ref like, hey, this was an illegal shot and it just affected me, cut me. But yeah, Cacace more or less had his way with Lee Wood in this one. Even when you saw Lee Wood pressing to try to make something happen, his right hands were falling short. His left hooks were often falling short. He was going to the body, but I didn't see a lot of effectiveness in it, at least in seeing any visible impact that it was having on Cacace. I didn't see it. So yeah, Cacace defeated Lee Wood via 9th round TKO. Again, I would either like to see him challenge for this IBF title that's going to be won by either Nunes or Rikishi, or to fight maybe O'Shaquie Foster. But I would rather see O'Shaquie Foster fight Emmanuel Navarrete. Like, why not? They're both 130-pound title holders. They're both on Top Rank. Why not get Navarrete versus O'Shaquie Foster? Now, Navarrete is most likely going to be running it back with Charlie Suarez because of the nature of the stoppage. Again, I thought that this fight took on the tone, the rhythm, and the pace of a lot of Navarrete fights. Charlie Suarez, he was short-armed and he was doing certain things effectively, but a lot of his punches were coming up short. He was trying to time Navarrete coming in and trying to counter him nicely, especially to the body. He would get him up top as well, but I didn't see that having a ton of impact against Navarrete. And I also wondered what kind of pace Suarez would be able to sustain at 36 years old in the second half of this fight versus Navarrete. Again, unless that weight cut was going to really impact Navarrete's performance in this one, which, I mean, we didn't see the fight go deep enough to see if it was really going to have an impact. It might have, might not have, but it would have required that weight cut having an impact, I think, for Suarez to have a lot of second half of the fight success at 36 against Navarrete, who otherwise would have probably started rolling downhill on Charlie Suarez. You saw Navarrete pushing the pace, pushing the combinations, letting his hands go, trying to make a fight out of it, even after that nasty cut. Now let's talk about that cut, because at first, the nature of the cut, you look at that type of a cut and you automatically think, oh, that was most likely a head clash. But then they played this replay like 20 times in the fight, and every time it looked like it was a punch that Charlie Suarez unleashed that hit Navarrete above the brow, the same area as the cut. But then after the punch landed, you didn't see the skin rip open, but you were kind of obscured because of the angle of the shot visibly, so you couldn't see whether the cut opened immediately. But then after the punch landed, first you heard the commentators saying that, yeah, it looked like this was actually a punch that caused it, but for some reason, after they showed it like a 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th time, you started hearing Timothy Bradley and company say, oh no, this looked like it was a clash of heads. Like they were trying to corroborate the officials' account, because the official ruling was a clash of heads. That was the ref's ruling. But all of a sudden, it's not like anything changed in the replay that was being shown. And it looked like, yeah, maybe Charlie Suarez's head, after clearly landing a flush punch on Navarrete, his head kind of came back, but it never looked like there was like a boom or even a hard brush moment of impact that you could point to that says, oh yeah, That's what caused that cut on Navarrete. Again, they showed it like 20 times. I didn't see anything differently. Now, Jack Reese was tasked with handling the replay, but for the official ruling to be overturned, it has to be conclusive evidence that this cut was caused by a punch. And it looked nearly conclusive. Like if the official ruling was initially a punch, yeah, that would have held and it would have been a win for Charlie Suarez. If a cut was caused by a punch and ended up causing the fight to be stopped, Charlie Suarez would be your new WBO 130-pound champion. But because the official initial ruling was a clash of heads, maybe there wasn't enough conclusive evidence, even if you look at the replay that clearly shows the punch, but you don't see the skin tear because of the angle of the shot, that maybe there wasn't conclusive enough evidence to overturn that. So I get that from Jack Reese's standpoint. Hey, what's good? I should make mention really quickly that when they continued to play the replays of that punch and the heads somewhat looking like they might have come together, they eventually arrived at a specific frame and angle where you could see the punch land, and you can, in fact, it at least looks like you could see the skin explode at the moment of impact for that punch. So all of the commentators at that point, including Timothy Bradley, who somewhat apologized to the viewers saying, oh, no. With this final angle, and this is after Jack Reese, made his ruling after looking at the replays, they being the commentators, arrived at the conclusion after watching this last frame that wasn't a thing until like several minutes after the fight, closer to like a half an hour after the fight concluded. They arrived at an angle where you could see the skin explode. So you can conclude from that. I think that was conclusive evidence that the cut was in fact caused by a punch. Yeah, Charlie Suarez should be champion right now. There are no two ways about it. He should be champion. It sounds like California might make a ruling on turning it into a no contest. Charlie Suarez should get at least another opportunity, but if justice was really served, he should be the WBO 130-pound champ right now. Yeah, that's what I thought about that, but enjoy the rest of the video. But it just seemed like the official ruling initially was a bad one because there was no evidence. Tell me if you saw it differently. I didn't see, out of the 20 plus replays that they showed, I didn't see the moment where they clash heads where it's like, oh yeah, that's what caused the cut. Again, I saw a clear punch land. I didn't see a clear clash of heads. The punch was much clearer than any clash of heads. It looked like their heads came close, might have touched, but did you see something that looked like it would have caused that cut? Again, I didn't see it. And you see these clashes of heads all the time, and they show it on the replay. You're like, ooh, yeah, I see that. I didn't see that here. Let me know if you saw any differently. But yeah, it was shaping up to be a pretty good fight. Yes, Navarrete was pushing the pace. Yes, Charlie Suarez was trying to implement his game plan of countering effectively, breaking off combinations. As Navarrete would launch into the pocket, Charlie Suarez would try to return fire, mixing up the attack high and low, missing with a lot of shots, and Navarrete rolling with a surprisingly high amount of shots. But I didn't see anything abnormal that told me that this was like a fight of the year building up here. I thought that it was a pretty good fight. I didn't see fight of the year necessarily. A fight of the year to me was that 2022 fight between Lee Wood and Michael Conlan. That's what a fight of the year looks like. I didn't quite see that here. I saw a good fight. I don't know if I saw a great fight, and I suspect that if the fight continued, that it would either be Navarrete winning via decision, or maybe if Charlie Suarez at 36 couldn't sustain the pace, Navarrete by stoppage over Charlie Suarez. I didn't see the tide turning to where I thought that Charlie Suarez was in the driver's seat, but he was making things kind of interesting with his return fire counters, combinations. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on these two fights. Again, it was a anticlimactic ending to Navarrete versus Suarez. It looks like they will most likely run it back. And I read something on Boxing Scene that sounds like the California Commission might change the ruling to a no contest because of the controversial nature of the initial ruling, what the video evidence tells us, and the result of the fight. And it sounds like if that's the case, they might run it back between Navarrete and Charlie Suarez. I wouldn't be mad at that. As much as I would want to see Navarrete fight somebody else, another champion. You know, Navarrete, in all the divisions he's been a champion, 122 when he beat Isaac Dogbe in the back-to-back fights, 126, and now 130. He's never not only unified titles, but he's never even fought to unify titles. I would like to see him finally do that. I saw what he tried to do in challenging for a vacant 135-pound title. It didn't end up working out. He fought Denis Berinchyk, and Denis Berinchyk ended up beating Emmanuel Navarrete via decision. That's the same belt that Berinchyk then lost to Keyshawn Davis. But Navarrete has been going up a division, picking up a WBO title in each of these divisions, but never fighting to unify 2 or more titles. I would like to see that change. I would like to see him fight a champion, but if he first has to run it back with Charlie Suarez and finish that unfinished business there, I wouldn't be totally mad at that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on these 2 fights. Anthony Cacace defeating Lee Wood via 9th round TKO. What would you like to see Cacace do next? And do you think that this is the end of Lee Wood's career? And then with Navarrete versus Suarez, what did you see in terms of what caused that cut? What do you think the official ruling should be? Should it be a no contest, or should Navarrete still have that win? And should he run it back with Charlie Suarez? And did you see a fight of the year brewing in that one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.